we still have to fundamentally media buy. We still have to know what's going on. So media buying can absolutely kill a business.
Barry, welcome to Bite Size. I'm super excited to have you on and chat today about all things growth marketing, paid media, some 2024 predictions, hopefully, Rotten gummies. Pleasure to have you, sir. I'm super pumped to be talking to you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat with you. This is going to be fun.
Of course. Let's kick things off. I know you're very well known within this space and industry, but for anyone who doesn't, or maybe doesn't even know kind of like what got you to where you are now, kick us off with your 5-minute career story. What got you started in the world of marketing and what are you currently doing?
Sure. Yeah. Wow. I can start from way back. I've been always an ad nerd. Like I realized it more and more recently, maybe through therapy or something. I used to watch a ton of TV as a kid, and I always found ads so interesting. I had like an internship at a marketing agency, a local marketing agency, and I just have always found that this stuff clicked for me, and I've just found so much joy in doing it and making people kind of change their minds or learn something new or do something with it. So yeah, I have done so many different things. I've been a bit entrepreneurial. Back early days when I was a teen, I had like a website that had basically no content on it, and I wasn't trying to monetize or anything. It was just for really no reason, just trying to get lots of visitors. And like started building and working in ad exchanges, like where you'd have impressions on your page that you'd trade for impressions on other people's pages, but for no reason. Like I wasn't trying to make money from it. I wasn't trying to do it. I was just like, I don't know. I wanted people to see my terrible website. It made no sense. But I've always had that kind of like that. I just wanting to play with stuff and break stuff. You know, I started my first Facebook ads in 2008, back when they were right column only. I was doing that for a summer camp company that had a bunch of summer camps that we were trying to hire, and we could target teachers and we could target college students who were looking to become teachers. So we're like, well, that's who we want to hire for these summer camps. And that was before you could optimize that. That was just like literally just right column traffic. So you couldn't optimize it. It was dirt cheap. And since then, I bounced around. I worked at a couple like tiny startups and some agencies, and then eventually worked my way to spending hundreds of millions of dollars at a startup that was like a media buying / data startup. And I was doing that spend on behalf of agencies and brands like Microsoft, Kraft, Toyota, AT&T, like big. When I just want to be clear, when I say that, I wasn't like one of those people who says that and was spending like, $30,000 for like some local AT&T, whatever. No, this was like AT&T National, DirecTV, Cricket Wireless, national, big time spends, executing a lot of stuff. And I learned a lot about inefficiencies, red tape, and just how the whole agency world works and where all that ad waste kind of is. And I learned that really early on in my career, now looking back at it, which has helped immensely with my perspective working with more aggressive, smaller D2C growth mode, brands that I've been working on for the last 5 or so years. So I worked at an agency called Thesis. Dara Denny worked for me there. And we worked on some amazing brands there like Urban Stems, Lumen Skin, Nuts.com, Keeps, the hair loss, Athletic Greens. We worked on tons of these named brands that were big back a few years ago. And I was really early on with Lumen. Like I really helped them to scale up. Not to take all the credit for all their growth, but I certainly helped. And while I was there, I also helped launch Lone River Ranch Water, which is a hard seltzer. That was pretty successful. We got acquired by Diageo after 1 year. And then I've been just kind of since then, I've been working and consulting and doing some media buying, doing some creative stuff for some different brands. And I own a piece of AdCrate, adcrate.co. If you want some performance creative, those are my boys. Even though I am repping my Fire Team Jambies sweatshirt, I don't work for Fire Team, but I do love my friends at Fire Team. And we have a YouTube show together called Ad Topsy. And I also now work on rotten gummy worms. So I do the ads, media buying and creative and all that stuff for gummy worms, and I don't know, a bunch of other stuff that I do. I mostly just spend my day on Twitter, I guess.
It's a full-time job. The amount of content that people could put out, I'm like, how are you guys doing this? This is and I kind of know that for myself, like now ramping up like LinkedIn content and even doing this like content creation, and just that is it's a full-time gig, but it's so important. We're going to dive into some of the stuff you mentioned, especially rotten gummies. I'm very interested in that and a few things there. It's actually interesting. Your story follows a similar path to mine. Like, what I liked about what you said is, why marketing and stuff. Sounds like you like the psychology behind marketing, right? And I think there's a couple of different
I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Then there's a couple of different paths into marketing. And I think as an industry, we can actually become so tactical data, like the numbers, and don't get me wrong, super important. But I'm always a big fan of leveling things up to the philosophy of what are we trying to do, and using that as kind of the initial mental model at how we think about creative. In actual fact, just posted a LinkedIn post of, the mindset behind no one is opening social media to be served an ad. When you have that mindset into what you're then trying to achieve, it kind of allows you to think through just how important the first 3 seconds are. Do you see what I mean?
It's so stupid that you even have to say that, right? Like, what you're saying is so valid, and that it shouldn't even have to be said, but yet it does have to be said, because I don't know what the entitlement is, if it's like that people are just so used to other media where it is, you don't have to earn the right to get in front of people. Like, or maybe they think it's like TV, or maybe they think that people do want to consume it. I don't understand how for years, so long, people just took this for granted. And it's been becoming harder and harder now than ever before to do that. And you have to be making stuff that now is more engaging and relevant than ever because of the TikTokification of everything. It used to be that your creative ads were competing with or blending in with or being in the feed with your friends' content. And then it was like your friends and like celebrities and like meme pages maybe. But now it doesn't matter what you follow. Instagram is going to feed you the most relevant content that on the earth that is relevant to your interests. And now our ads have to compete with that. Like, if it's not immediately compelling or relevant, your ad is toast more than ever before. So that's what we're all up against now. And it's crazy to me that people don't see that.
That's a good tee up to obviously something I really want to dive into with you is creative. You're wearing the hat, and I think we can credit you as the founder, the trademark. Is it trademarked? Make ugly ads?
No.
Okay.
It's, in fact, like, if you Google it, there's people that used it before me.
Forget
like
them.
There's a blog
Forget
or something.
Them.
Yeah,
it's yours.
Yeah,
we're going to give you that accreditation. But and it's an interesting take. And
I popularized it.
Yeah, you popularized it. And you know what? It speaks into everything we're just talking about. It's capturing attention, right? It's so do this. But, everything you just mentioned in terms of like how you need to compete and show up in the feed. Just talk a little bit more about like the shifts in how these platforms operate and what that requires brands and marketers and creators to think about when they're thinking about creative strategy and how to win on these platforms.
Like I was saying, we're now being kind of spoon-fed the most relevant content to us. So it's not just that you're getting the most viral content on the planet. You are getting some of that, right? Without subscribing to it, you are going to get viral content sent straight to your eyeballs. However, it's not even just that. You're going to be sent the most viral content that is relevant to you and your interests based on all the other content you've consumed. And the system knows what you've watched, knows where you've paid attention. So that's what you're competing against. So if you need to be making content that is conscious of that, you need to be creating stuff that people just at least don't want to immediately skip. That's the first hurdle that I still see 90% of advertisers fail to even comprehend, is that bar. It needs to be, you need to just get over that first bar for you to have any success. And then beyond that, once you do get that attention, that relevant attention, because you don't want to just get attention, you need relevant attention. People that are, like I could be shirtless in every ad, or you could put a shirtless person in every ad, but that doesn't make it more relevant. That might get more attention, but it doesn't make it more relevant to what you're trying to sell. So that's what you have to be keeping in mind. And then making compelling content that is, again, relatable. Like, it's so hard to check those boxes at the same time, but that's what's being expected of us. And it's not really something that advertisers are good at. It's not really something that we have trained in or went to school for. It's more stuff that storytellers, creators, actors maybe have studied better than a lot of actual advertisers and marketers. So I think there's a big gap there, and it'll be interesting to see how the industry continues to try to fill that gap.
And do you think that's as well, I mean, I kind of think this, but why there's this media buying is dead, right? And the shift away, which I don't agree with, right? I think there's a lot of value in good media buying, but why much more emphasis? Because, if you've been running Facebook ads for, let's say, 5-6 years, whatever, to your point, what's going to have the biggest success on your Facebook ads or Meta ads or any paid media ads within social platforms these days? It's not going to be the things that you used to do. And if you don't have that creative ability to be thinking about creative in the way you just mentioned, it's going to have an impact on your ads. So, like, we've seen it. There's been lots of conversation within our Twitter communities about this. What's your take when it comes to pure media buying versus creative strategy? How should they interplay? Is it one person? Is it two people? How do you have your teams kind of structured?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So for me, media buying is the traditional media buying, in the way that people say it's dead, is dead. It's dead. Like, stop trying to media buy your way out of problems. It's just not the way anymore. So media buying in that way is, in my very strong opinion, quite dead. However, we still have to fundamentally media buy. We still have to know what's going on. So media buying can absolutely kill a business. Poor media buying can. Streamlined, simple media buying should be easy. But when people say that it's dead, they mean that, like, the leverage on it is kind of gone away. You're not going to make, like, social media marketing agency as like this, like, guru business or whatever. Like, it's harder to make probably great margins on it now because it's so easy to do a lot of the media buying. However, there's still so many people that get the media buying wrong deeply, and so many people who just don't understand the implications of what they're doing because they just look at the numbers and believe the numbers, and they don't question the numbers or dig any deeper. And that's where I don't know if it's media buying or analysis, that some of it's still very valid and important. Like, being able to understand the difference between 1-day click and 7-day click attribution, the difference between 1-day view and any click attribution, and the importance of being able to understand that is lost on way too many marketers, way too many agencies that don't even think about that. The importance of whether or not you include or whether or not you exclude your existing customers, or you don't have an opinion about excluding customers. If you don't think about it, then you don't realize you're not excluding your customers, and that the system might, because you think the system, a lot of marketers think the system has their best interest in mind. The system can't know what your interests are, cannot know what's best for your business. It just knows inputs and outputs. You put money in, it gives you conversions out. It doesn't care how it gets them. It just wants to count as many. It just wants to count as many as it can for as little as money as you can put in, so that it gets you to put more money in. So people don't realize that or respect that. So trying to help people. The thing that I do a lot now in my media buying is either I take over an account or I help audit an account and help people see the light about how to media buy in a way that actually does scale and actually doesn't create a snake eating its own tail, really, and what numbers to actually focus on. And so it is so funny. Like, I do want to agree media buying is dead, but also like for me, expert media buying is so valuable and important right now. And until I see that it's commonplace to have a lot of these better practices in place, I can't call them best practices because so many people call them different things best practices. And I don't know when that will be. I don't know when it will be that the industry as a whole finally better understands media buying in a way that benefits them rather than, or benefits the actual business rather than what just looks good or feels good.
Yeah, looks and feels good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you touched on some really important points. I think the measurement piece is really important as well. You know, we've had big shifts in measurement. There's a lot of conversation on, well, what should you be holding your paid media, your marketing spend accountable to? There's MER, there's ACOS, there's contribution margin. I think ultimately, you know, there's smart marketers and operators out there understand that what you're spending has to be increasing revenue in a CAC model that is scalable for the brand that's ultimately driving profit or contribution margin. What's your take? How are you analyzing the success of paid media?
I generally try to be in a situation where that's not my job. Like generally, like someone might hear that, like I could imagine Taylor Holiday and be like, look, see, he's an idiot, like, or something like that. But like in reality, I often, the situation, the role I'm put in is typically where I'm here to do the best possible media buying and creative that I can to get the best results that I can for a brand. But I don't think it makes sense for me to also be the person who has the financial hat on, because that should be coming from someone who works with me and has a better understanding of the financials, both in terms of what money is available, what money we're willing to risk or not, and which metrics we're going to rely on for that. I think that's a shared responsibility, because I just don't think that is the media buyer's job, is to like be in charge of a business's financials. I just don't think that makes sense. I know a lot of businesses are, you know, I know a lot of agencies or whatever are trying to sell that now as a service. And I think that often too heavily relies on short-term immediate inputs and outputs and can stunt growth. One of the examples I like to think about is like, yeah, you might be building the most profitable business that you can, right? But who's to say that your competitor is as well? Your competitor who might have deeper pockets than you. Your competitor might be able to go, you know, lose money more than you. Your competitor you don't know what it is, but if you're trying to take over a category or build a category or any of these different variables, you just don't know what you're up against. And a lot of times having the goal of being bigger, faster, even at a loss, is actually more valuable in the long term. I think someone who also would listen to that would say, well, not so much anymore. And that's fair. I think in 2024, it's less, we're seeing less and less of that in 2023, right? But still fundamentally, I do think there is some truth to that. And I don't think that it is a media buyer's job. I think that's a CMO or a CFO, CEO, and then they should be setting those metrics that are needed to hit. And then a media buyer should be doing everything that they can to do that without trying to game the system, with actually trying to improve those numbers incrementally. So that's my kind of unique stance.
I think you make some really good points. What's a brand's job with building a brand, right? It's have a great product. It's to run a financially viable business. If you're not running a financially well-established business, if your COGS are out of control, your OPEX is out of control, hoping that a media buyer is going to be able to outperform the costs you're stacking a business with, and then to hold them accountable to that, that's very, very tricky. That's not the media buyer's job. So I think where it makes sense if I'm a brand owner, right? Like my job is to set the business up for success. And I think so much of that, when you look at how you hold marketing accountable, is, well, I had to do my job as the brand first before I could expect and allow my marketing dollars to help me be successful versus dig me out of a hole because I've not established my brand from a cost and financial perspective in a way that allows my marketing to make me successful.
And I'll add, like, I'm always going to work with whoever that person is that is setting these metrics, and I'm going to poke holes and ask questions of like, if we're doing this, does this unlock more, how can we unlock more dollars? Because at the end of the day, what I fundamentally know from having worked with giant brands and having scaled brands significantly, fundamentally, okay, I can't prove this, but hopefully if you can feel what I'm saying when I say this, the more that you spend, the more good things will happen. As long as your ads don't suck, right? And if they suck, then you're probably losing tons of money, okay? But the better your ads are, the more you spend on them, the better everything will feel. And it's just because, we're talking about mostly social ads. So one, they're social, people share them. But even if we weren't, just being able to justify spending more means that more people are seeing your ads. And especially if they're better performing ads or ads that are good at getting people's attention, getting people to care and getting people to take action, the more people that can see those and the more that you can spend on getting, the better everything is going to get, even if you can't track it one-to-one with attribution. It's just how it works. People are talking about it more. People are, sharing it more. All of these halo effect things compound, and it becomes harder to track, harder to properly optimize for, especially when you add in multiple traffic sources. So you're on TikTok and TV and Pinterest and Snapchat and whatever, like all these things, justifying them is great, but that doesn't mean all of them are net incremental and the attribution on any of them is accurate. But being able to justify more of it is generally massive.
I agree. And I take that similar approach into something that I think it was one of my 2024 predictions, but also hopes, is that more brands invest more heavily into social media marketing from an organic perspective. To your point, it's can I track the exact ROI? No. However, from a philosophical standpoint, and bearing in mind, like, you need, in the hopes you have an optimized kind of ad funnel and everything else, but that free distribution of organic social media channels and your ability to drive so much awareness and social virality and social conversation, to not do that because I can't directly track it to an end action seems like such a big missed opportunity. And I think maybe this comes maybe it comes from a more philosophical marketing approach versus just living in the data. Not that we don't understand the data, but I'm shocked that more brands are not spending the cost of content production and a creator partnership, floods social media with organic content to help everything they're doing. That's far more expensive from a paid perspective.
I love this point, Daniel. It's a great point. You're 100% correct. The funny thing is that like newer, younger brands who get what you just said. They understand fundamentally that is part of the plan. And that's what they're going to do. That's their game plan. They're going to invest in that. But anyone who's been in the industry for a couple more years, we all learned this lesson of like, organic social doesn't do shit. Organic social doesn't move the needle, right? You go back 3 years ago and I would have told you that. Like, stop investing in organic. It's not doing anything for you. It's just vanity. It's bullshit. But now that the tables have turned, everything's been TikTokified, right? You can make content that the systems will give free reach to. You couldn't do that 3 years ago on Instagram. Not a chance. But now you can. And you can get very nicely rewarded for that, both from your brand's organic content and from other people making organic content featuring your brand. So I absolutely agree. And to me, the big shift is very similar to ad creative. It's very much about how do we get modern creative made that should be able to check both of those boxes. Like, I'm not saying Roden is good at this because we're not yet. We're working on this. But like, we want to be better at making particularly video, but any kind of content, but particularly video content that is super relevant to our audience and they want to consume, and then it also sells, right? If you like, Mini Katana has been like the obviously like the obvious winner in this world and the easy thing to go point at. Friggin' fantastic example. And brands can and should be making fun content because there's a cost to it, but effectively you're getting free reach. So like, to your point, it's really hard to track the ROI of that. And to those people who are also the media buyers or whoever that just think of themselves as the dollar out, like it's just not that. It's not that simple. It should be more complicated than dollar in, dollar out. So I agree with you. I love that point about organic. I think it plays a huge role. And I think most brands I see are still living in that world of like, they're living in one of two worlds. They're living in the world from 3 years ago when Instagram, people were like, oh, Instagram is useless. Or from an organic reach perspective, or they're living in the world from before that, which was like, yeah, let's make all of our organic, really branded stuff. It's just about our brand. It's just about us. And it's like, you need to do the fucking opposite of that, dude. You need to make content that is not about the brand, not about the product. You need to make content that is about the consumer more than ever. So that's the bar for organic and for paid.
That leads me into another question. Creative being on brand versus not on brand. And
pass. No, I'm just kidding.
No passes in this, Barry.
I don't know.
I'm joking. And I think that's like, it's a common thing, especially among agencies, right? Especially if you're a bit more clued up on the type of creative that is needed. How much do you see maybe like with brands vetoing creative that could work, should work, feeds into kind of all the things that are relevant on platforms, but being vetoed because it doesn't feel on brand? And what's your take around that?
Oh, I mean, this is my nightmare, dude. Like, I hate this. Like, it happens too much still. Like, it's going to always happen. It's brutal. So many great potential ads are shut down by people for no good reason. For brand safety reasons or brand, I don't even know what it is that they're covering or what data point they're using. I mean, they're not using data to prove that point. They're not using anything except for like their own gut feeling. And their gut feeling is biased, and their gut feeling is that from a seasoned marketer or a trained marketer, and it is not that of their audience. Unless you are marketing to marketers, and then maybe I'll allow it, but even then, marketers marketing and marketers forget that marketers are still human, right? So it's really hard to like loosen that up and let go of that. I'm not saying everyone should not have a brand, right? Like when you look at Roden's branding is dope. Like this is a big swing brand, like design aesthetic, and I love it. But like that doesn't mean that it's going to work well in an ad. And in fact, it doesn't. I don't think we've seen a good example running ads where being heavy into branding has worked for us, especially when it is this big of a visual aesthetic. It takes time for people, it takes time for people to warm up to it, and B, it's clearly a product. When it's in an ad, it doesn't look like something else that someone would expect or want to see. Some of these, a lot of advertising, by the way, that like so much of what we talk about on Twitter is like some people that are advertising things that like just look weird and like in ads. And they're like, what? I don't understand. I put product shots on a white background and it worked. I don't know why you guys are working so hard on your creative. And I'm like, yeah, because what you're putting out there doesn't make sense to people and they have to stop and look at it to try and figure it out. Oh, it looks like a spaceship. What is that? Oh, it's a ring? Oh, it's a silicone ring? Oh, that's cool. I don't have one of those. Why would they advertise that? And then now they're getting people to pay attention just because it is in itself curiosity inducing. But like for this, we don't necessarily have that. And for most people listening to that, you probably don't have that. You probably have packaging or branding or a product that either needs some sort of explanation or some sort of education or hand-holding, or on the opposite, it's something so common that nobody cares about it, right? If you make something that's like just super normal, like a bottle of salad dressing, ask me why I have this on my desk, I don't know. But like, it's clearly a bottle of salad dressing. Like it's clearly a bottle, it's a product. Like that's not interesting, right? It's just not. So you have to do a lot of other lift to make an ad for that salad dressing worth consuming. So some brands get that and some brands don't. Some products get that and some products don't. And unfortunately on Twitter, nobody understands or cares about that nuance. They just think what's worked for them will work for everyone else and vice, and so then they just tweet it confidently.
There's a bit of that. You know what? I think one of my thoughts around this is probably a lot of people know some of the stuff we're saying in terms of how they have to think about creative. They just don't so take that bottle of salad dressing, salad sauce. I don't know where that came from. There you go. There's an
It's so good. It's a much better Britishism. That's a great Britishism versus an Americanism.
Salad sauce is the new salad dressing. There's your angle.
It is. Yeah, right.
I think probably what they struggle with, and this is where marketing comes into play, but creative strategists, is how do I take that bottle and position it in different ways that's going to capture that attention? I think it sounds like such a fundamental and obvious thing to say, but even brands we work with, they're not void of understanding creative as the variable from a testing perspective. And even if we bring them down the education point of everything we're talking about around capturing attention and everything else, it's just a lack of understanding then how to then funnel that down into tactical ways of producing different types of content.
For that, I would say don't show the product, or at least don't start with it, right? Some things can inherently just be shown and people either get it and want it, right? A lot of apparel works that way. They see it, they want it, or they see it and they don't. But other things, it's like they see it and they understand what it is, or they see it and they don't understand what it is. And if they don't understand what it is, but they understand it's a product, they might not care. If they don't understand what it is, but they aren't sure it's a product, they'll be like, what is this? Like, I just play in this psychological space when I see so many people talking about their successes and failures. I'm like, well, you didn't try hard enough. You didn't do enough. If you're talking about selling salad sauce, like you don't want to show the bottle. You want to show salad. You want to show a person enjoying it, right? Like there's so many other things you need to do to get someone to care about really good salad sauce. It's showing the product isn't it, right? Like it's just fundamentally not. Unless it's a very unique product. The truff sauce guys have a unique shaped and designed product that maybe can do some of that work for you. But this is a funny thing now we're talking about product design and package design and how it actually has an impact on your ability to market and performance market, which is crazy because so few people in that product design space are ever thinking about performance marketing. And I think there are those few people now that have that mindset about when they're into it. And yeah, I think those are people that are having an easier time with some of the stuff.
And we're seeing it more and more, aren't we? Yourself, and we will come on to this with getting involved with Rotten Gummies and obviously, marketers launching brands. I made a post about this, like the creator economy and influencer brands. I think that's one category. I think the bigger opportunity, well, not bigger opportunity, but when you look at what you just said, who's connecting brand with marketing is marketers starting brands.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of it. And I think we're all guilty of it, right? It's like, oh, well, we're really good at scaling other brands' success. Why don't we just...
Why not do it ourselves?
Yeah. Right. It's a different skill set. And having been on the brand side as well, when it comes to manufacturing, dipping and all it, it's not as easy as it sounds. But you go into...
I want nothing to do with any of that. I like, that's, by the way, why I work with Roden is because I was given this opportunity to get involved in a deep, involved way, but not have to deal with packaging and like getting the product, made right, the hominess and the right flavor. Like, I don't want to be in formulating enough. It's just not for me. And I'm good at area and I want to crush in this area. So, but yeah, keep going. Sorry.
No, I mean, I tend to agree with you. I've done a good job of having partners in any brand I'm a part of that can do all of that side of things. But having influence of like, well, we have to have this type of packaging and unboxing experience because then there's some social browse. Like factoring those things into an early stage brand, I think is beneficial. Coming on to Rotten Gummies though, let's talk more about that. So obviously a lot of the work that you've done and you do is either as an agency or somebody being brought in, help our brand do this. What's the differences of how you think and approach things when you're, actually part of a brand from a partner perspective in charge of the growth?
Yeah, it's a great point. Personally, for me, it doesn't change that much. I'm the kind of guy where I annoyingly, even to my own, like, even though it doesn't always benefit me, I'm really involved. I'm looking at the stuff that like is outside of my realm to be like, hey, what's going on with this? How can this get better? Because if we improve this, everything will get better, which means what I'm doing will get better. But when I'm really like in a brand, you know, which is what I did with Lone River Ranch Water and I'm doing here with Roden, is I am trying to chirp at all those things. I'm looking at the homepage more. Because even though I'm not driving ads to the homepage, fundamentally, a good portion of our traffic is going to go to the homepage. Even if we don't drive them there, they're going to Google it. They're going to go to just the regular.com. They're going to click a logo somewhere and it'll get them back to the homepage. And what's on that homepage matters. So like I'm going to be thoughtful about what the copy is. And I want to start trying different images there. And I want to start playing with stuff. I'm trying to understand like, hey, what's our email flow? Hey, like what is, what is the offer that we're doing? Actually, I do that for all my clients, but especially here where I have more access and more ability to dig in and be like, what if our first customer offer is these two things plus this gift, and then we upsell to this, and then we upsell to this, like, and trying to ask the questions, because we're not there yet, it's still new. We're still trying to get dialed in, but I'm really just trying to find and turn over all the stones of like, where is the performance? Where can we squeeze this out? Because I'm invested in the long-term success of this business, or short-term if we get bought, tomorrow, right? Who cares? But like, I'm looking for that, outcome of business, business outcome, a successful business outcome. So I'm not really focused on like short-term making a % of spend to this month, or like keeping this client, doing the absolute bare minimum so I can keep this client. Not to say I do that, but that's what a lot of people's mindsets are with the way they structure their deals. So I'm in this and I want it to be big. I want it to be massive. And we have every reason to be able to make it a huge, huge thing. And I have a lot of ownership.
Good. I need to try it. I need to get some rotten gummies. I need to try them.
They'll send you some, yeah.
I appreciate that. You mentioned two things actually, which is interesting, mainly from my perspective, like being agency side, and got interest in some brands as well. And what you're saying there is like larger ability to influence some of the things that will ultimately impact and either help or hold back marketing initiatives. We kind of spoke about that earlier. And then the other thing is like the long-term thinking. Every agency would want to have a long run from which to execute. And it's challenging. You do your best work when you're able to work with a brand over a sustained period of time. I don't care how good you are. You can make some quick improvements depending on how the foundation is. But, that I love this with the brands I'm involved in, the ability to not think, well, if it goes wrong for 2 quarters, we're going to get fired. No, you just have to problem solve harder. And I think like not being in that mindset is probably nice when you're involved in the actual brands. I
mean, I can be fired. I can be fired, right? Like,
what I mean.
I have to be. Yes, I do. But it does change. I think a big part of that is like my perspective going into working on Lone River Ranch Water was based on like I'd been having a lot of success with D2C brands, especially with D2C brands who went from being D2C to moving into retail, and then suddenly capturing all these new sales. So it became a nightmare in terms of attribution or optimization technically. But in reality, what we found was that so many of all these ads we've been spending on for years were finally paying off now that we're in Target, right? Now that people can go buy it because they didn't ever want to put their credit card information online because they didn't want to deal with it because they didn't need it that much. But now they're in Target. They see that brand that they've been seeing ads for a year or two. I'm like, oh yeah, grab it. So I kind of took that with me with Roden and with Ranch Water, and we ran a D2C playbook, and that was not D2C. The really important detail, that was retail only. Like we did not sell that through our site at all. Instead of taking that regular brand playbook where you like buy for reach and whatever, we optimized for action so that our best ads that drove the most actions were the ones that were getting the most spend. And, again, some of that's technical and some of that's data and some of that's philosophical, to be like, I'm making ads that are making cold people who've never thought about buying a ranch water, don't even know what ranch water is, get them to pay attention, care, and want this product, and taking action to it, and knowing that we're spending more on the ads that are getting people to take action. That's enough to generate real world impact. So, I forget where we were going with that, but that's what we're effectively doing with Roden, and why I look so deeply at this media buying and creative and landing page experience combination, because if you just trust the data, your data is often going to skew towards the warmest audiences, whether you're testing landing pages or creative or media buying, like testing an ad set versus the other. That doesn't mean it's better. That doesn't mean that it's what you should do. You need to make sure philosophically that your ads and your landing pages and your media buying are working for getting more new people in and getting more new people to care. If you're not doing that, and it's really hard to do that with data, because again, your data is always going to skew towards the things that work for your existing fans or warm audiences. Those people are already most likely to convert. So you have to kind of take a step back, think qualitatively about the metrics that you're seeing, and make better, longer term decisions. And that's what I don't think I've ever really thought about it in that way before and said it and packaged it in that way. But I think that's one of my core differentiators, something that I do differently, especially when I'm in a brand, but also when I just am involved in a problem. That's what I'm trying to do, is make it so that the system is helping everything. Everything's helping everything grow.
It makes total sense. Is that what we call full funnel? That's the true definition of full funnel, right?
I think so, but at the same time, we're not doing full funnel because we're not breaking it out. I'm not talking about breaking out cold, medium, warm, hot. It's like that stuff, controlling that is bad. Being too controlling of that is bad, but giving too much control to the system and just trusting it is also bad. So it's about finding that middle ground on how do you trust the system and trust the data, but also question it, challenge it, and also have a good philosophy to be okay, we still want to force this a little bit. We want to force cold audiences in a little bit.
And to your point, that needs that understanding of what is ultimately going to drive the best business outcomes, and not just looking at and stack ranking or what has the highest measurable immediate ROI, because you're automatically going to cut off the things therefore that aren't driving that immediate action, which we see this time and time again. Things get cut off, and then there's a lag in how much then that impacts your lower funnel direct attribution.
Yeah, I have a brand that they're we got to cut spend by 50%. We're out of inventory or whatever it is. And it's if I do this, if I only focus on the best performing stuff, if we cut all the stuff that doesn't look as good, then we're probably cutting the stuff that is, because of the way I have it set up, we're probably turning off the stuff that is bringing in new audiences rather than the stuff that's just capitalizing on the warmer audiences. And it's not black or white. It's all this very mushy shade of, it's just all shades of gray. And it's really hard to know that. And I can't guarantee that, but that is genuinely what I see and feel.
Barry, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. There's so much to unpack.
Yeah. I'm fired up. This was great.
No, I'm loving the conversation. I think we'll have to do another session. I try and be true to the branding. There you go. I'm holding myself accountable to my own brand guidelines of being snackable. But so much great information and stuff in here for people listening who are media buyers, creative on the brand side, or looking to kind of learn and apply things to their brand. I do want to end on though, seeing as though we're still early enough in the new year to be able to ask this question. But what predictions do you have for 2024? That could be e-commerce, consumer marketing, or just anything else that's top of mind for you in terms of predictions for the year.
I think it's just going to be a big year for content. I mean, I think we saw it a bunch last year, but the push to more and more quality and variety of content, both of those things, diversity in content and quality of content, and relevant. Well, when I say quality, I mean really relevance, not making more polished content, making more relevant content, And I don't think this is a 2024 prediction, but I'd say in the next 2-3 years, we're going to be seeing brands that are more like they're going to have to become media production houses rather than brands. And where it's in a lot of like new, that's I think a lot of ways some of the only ways some new brands will be able to grow and survive is by people loving their content, genuinely buying into and enjoying the content. But that's a bold prediction. I think we're a few years away from that really being the case.
Man, I don't disagree with the premise. Content is how you win. Advertising is content. Advertising gets awareness. Awareness funnels down to customers. So I like that. I like that prediction. Barry, it's so fantastic to have you on the podcast. I really appreciate your time. We'll definitely have to do another session, actually, because I feel like there's some specifics I haven't unpacked within this brain of knowledge that you have. But really appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. My pleasure.